Here you see a really easy to sew knit top where in one pattern you have 4 body styles, lots of sleeves. Basically you can make like 20 things from this pattern and no one's gonna know it's the same one. Mix and match a lot of things in there. I think that's a lot of fun. Hi sewing friends, I'm Karina from liftingpinsandneedles.com. Welcome to this channel that is all about sewing, limitless sewing, and I'm here to share with you my new Forte top from Love Notions. This is a quite popular pattern. I see it a lot on the Facebook group. A lot of people like it, and I think it's a style that you could make for many years to come. It's always going to look super nice on a lot of people. By the way, this is the Feature Friday pattern for today. Only today Friday, that means it's only $5 and that's over 60% off the regular price. You can always find my affiliate link in the description box and also my discount code that will give you an extra 10% off even on top of the sale price. Now this discount code is going to be changing every now and then, so it's not always going to be the same one. So always check next to the link because you always see the updated code there. At this moment it's lifting 10, but later down the line it might be another one, so always check. You can see that there's 4 styles here. One of them has a low waist cut all the way around with a gathered peplum, a round scoop neckline with a neckband. The other one is more like a traditional t-shirt, so you see there's no features on the body itself. That's one that can take you a long way if you want a simple knit top. Then view B and D are the ones that are totally different. They're totally different pattern pieces. You have a bodice that is different to what you typically sew. I would call it an empire bodice. I think this bodice should hit right under the bust here at the center front, and then it'll just go diagonally down like this. There is a center front seam there. This creates a V neckline that's super easy to sew. And then below that, you can put 2 types of fronts. One is this asymmetric sort of flared style that when you sew the bodice to this bottom part is just straight, but then it flares out. This is my absolute favorite. And the other one on the front is the same diagonal bodice like this, but underneath you have a gathered skirt piece. You know, you can always adjust the length that you want, but the original length of these will almost cover your bottom, I think. It's always shorten and lengthen lines for you to alter the length of the skirt pieces if you need to. The back for these is just on the fold. It's very simple. And then for the sleeves, you have a ton of sleeves. You can do a short sleeve with a little gathered peplum or a flounce, or like a belt type of sleeve, a regular long sleeve. I mean, there's a lot you can add on to here, and you can get a bunch of different makes. For knit fabrics, at least 25% stretch, and here you can go from light to medium weight. Just depends on the look that you want. Remember, cotton spandex is not going to drape, so if you choose any of the features that have gathers, they're going to stick out a little bit. Maybe the simple top that doesn't have many details is the best one to make with cotton lycra. Otherwise, for the rest, I think more drapey knits are going to be nicer, like ITY, double brush poly, single brush poly, modal spandex, bamboo spandex, some athletic knits. I would not make these types of tops out of something heavy like scuba or ponte because they're just too heavy and all these features are just going to balloon away from your body. You know, they have quite a nice amount of ease, so I would keep it lightweight. And for this time, I used a lightweight athletic knit. It's going to take this top a long way because I could wear it with normal clothes, but I could also wear it to work out. Now, one thing about the fabric that is non-conventional, and I've done this the previous time I made this pattern, is that for the front piece, for views B and D, you could use a woven fabric for the front. Something drapey like a chiffon if you want, something sheer, or 100% rayon would be really nice and drapey. The top would still fit, still nice and loose. You're not going to have issues about ease there. The bodice does have to be knit because it's nicely fitted, but the bottom bit here, that could be a woven. And I did it last time. I did it with chiffon, and I doubled up my bodice piece on the front to sort of have that chiffon layer in between the two. So that's an idea. It's a really nice floaty dress. I do need to wear a slip underneath because my chiffon in the front is totally transparent. But you could avoid that if you want with a fabric that's not sheer. It would be much easier. The Forte was already updated to include up to 5X, and it's got a regular bust and a full bust option. As always, you need to choose your base size based on your high bust. That will give you a nice shoulder and neckline fit, and then look at all the other measurements and see. Look, for views B and D, which have these flowy types of skirt pieces, there's a lot more ease at the hips than with the other versions. They're all a little bit different, but they're not oversized. You're gonna be okay if you just look at your measurements and choose your size accordingly. You'll be fine. Last time I made this dress, I cut out a size large. This time I cut a size extra large. For the fitting adjustment for this view that I've chosen, the only thing that I really was worried about was having this bodice hit right under the bust, here in the center, and then going off diagonally right here. So I didn't want this cut to be like almost at the bottom of my bust or like in the middle of my bust. I did not want that. I wanted it right under. And that is something customizable. You know, you have the regular bust and the full bust option. I suppose the full bust option will have a longer bodice right here. You know, the more bust tissue you have, the more length you need for this bodice to go right under the bust. So I think it's a little bit of a trial and error. The bodice is tiny. You can make a tiny little test piece with a scrap knit that you have to check. I know from making it last time that I needed 2 inches. Because I added those 2 inches to this little bodice, I also added it to the back piece so that everything matches up. So length is always something that you can play around with. So out of all these styles, I think the one I would make forever is View B. It's just my absolute favorite. I made the same one last time, only the dress version. This time I made the top version. Now they are separate pattern pieces for the skirt. You'll find a shorter one and a longer one in the pattern, but the way they're sewn on together is exactly the same. This time again, I decided to leave out the sleeves. I'm sweltering right here. It's just so hot. I cannot even think about sleeves right now. And for working out, I definitely need something sleeveless. So sleeves come off. That's not part of the pattern. But I think the armhole is just perfect. I didn't need to change anything. All I needed to do was add some binding inside and voila, that's all done. So I'm going to show you how to put this one together. The view that I've made, it's super simple. Maybe the lineup makes you think it's harder than it is. You'll see how easy it is. In the previous video, I didn't film any sewing, so here you have a little bit of sewing for you to see. These are the pattern pieces for View B of the Forte, which is my favorite view from this pattern. It's the one I always make, and you can see the bodice is short. It's got a diagonal seam, shorter at the center front and then longer towards the sides. This is the area where I added the extra length that I need to make sure the seam is underneath my bust. And then this is a skirt piece for the top. There's a separate pattern piece, a little different to this but similar in this shape, but it's just longer for a dress. And you're going to find here on the slanted area of the bodice a triangle on the pattern. I drew a little line. And on this skirt piece, you also find a triangle. That's what is going to be sewn together. And then this section is going to be the center front. This over here is going to be the hem, and this over there is going to be the side seam. So the way this comes together is super easy. We sew these 2 pieces together separately, one side and then the other side. Once those are sewn, then we sew the center fronts right there. This is the other piece I need, which is the back. I'm making this one sleeveless. I didn't cut any sleeve pieces. This is how these 2 pieces look when they're attached. This is the bodice, that's the diagonal seam. Here are the center fronts. You'll find little triangles there to match. So that's how the front's gonna come together after that seam is sewn. Then we're just gonna sew the center front. After serging the edges, I did sew it with my sewing machine. This is optional, of course. You could sew it just with a serger and then trim away some when you're sewing, so you respect the 3/8 seam allowance. I just prefer to have the seam. It's a narrow zigzag. And now this is the center front now. This is the center front of the bodice, and then this will be, and then it continues down. So I'm going to make sure the seam allowance is going down, and I'm going to serge these edges on both of these before we do that center front seam. Here I have the center fronts pinned. You'll find a little dot. So if you want to do it as per the pattern, what you would do is fold that in like this. So it would just be like that. And then you would sew the center front like this. But I'm going to put on an extra V-neck band because I like doing V-neck bands. They take no time at all. So I'm just going to sew from that dot onwards, and all that's going to be left open here is like I would have done a snip when you don't have a seam. So I'll just start from the dot and then sew going through that seam and then all the way down there, and then I can press the seam open. Here where these seams join, so I have a seam at the bottom, I have a pin horizontally. I don't want to remove it because I really want these to match. So I'm just going to hand crank over this seam so I make sure not to break my needle. Now that I'm past the pin, I'll remove, and that's how I make sure the seams will match in the center front. So now it's super easy. I've just got the back there. Now that my front is all sewn up, I can just place them right sides together. And we're gonna match up the shoulder seams, sew those, then just sew the side seams. And then I'll be finishing the neckline with a V-neck band. I'll do some binding on my sleeveless armholes and then the hem. And that's it. I think this looks way more complex than it is. It's really, really easy and fun to put together. This is my new Forte top. I really, really love this fabric. I had quite a bit of this yardage. I've already made a dress with this fabric and I had just enough to make this top. This one at my size, extra large, took exactly 1 meter of fabric, just over a yard. No sleeves though. So here is mine. In the sewing I mentioned that the neckline in the original pattern is finished much easier for this neckline because you would just fold it in. You'd serge the edges, fold it in first before sewing the seam. That would give you a really easy V-neck. So I think if you were newer to sewing and you'd never sewn a V-neck band and you're scared of V-neck lines, this would be a really, really easy one. But because I love sewing V-neck bands and I've done so many, it doesn't create any noise in my mind to just add one on. I measured my circumference, cut out my band. If you're new to the channel, you might not know, but I have a whole series on V-neck lines for wovens and knits. And I have one specific video showing you how to add your own V-neck bands to anything. I show you how. I even have some PDF pieces that you can print out of V-neck bands and add them on to whatever you want. So that's what I've done here and it was so good. And then in here I have simple binding piece. It is folded to the inside and then just top stitch with a narrow zigzag stitch. So it looks like a straight stitch, but it'll stretch with me, you know, it'll allow stretch. And then we have the seam, this diagonal cut here right there, and then the skirt piece. So you will see inside that I serge seams and also use the sewing machine. It'll be really hard for me to stop using the sewing machine with knits just because I like having that seam allowance in here. Oh, this fabric is light, but it's not that light, and I love having that seam there. It's a narrow zigzag and the serged edge. The side seams are the same, and here you'll really be able to see how this front comes together. You know, you can see that the last thing you do is this center front seam because you put this bodice piece with the skirt piece first and then you get that V. The skirt piece is not rounded. You're gonna have a little bit of a corner. It's not a 90-degree angle. You can see it's a larger angle. I've just folded it and then folded it again, and it's really neat with the twin needle. So that's just really easy to do. And there's 2 of these sections on the front. Look. One here and one there. It was super fast and easy to put together, really, really fun make. And I love how it looks. You get all this floatiness here in the center front, which I think looks great. And you just have to be careful about getting this seam to be right under the bust. And that can vary, you know, with your height, with the amount of bust tissue that you have. So for me, 2 inches was the trick. I know I have to add that amount to get it right under the bust. I've styled it with jeans and heels and a bag, you know, but I'll be really happy to wear these with leggings and sneakers and go to the gym and I'll be sweet. I really love it. I think if you haven't made this one, you'll really enjoy it because you can get so much out of it. And you know, maybe I could make another one exactly like this with long sleeves in a really lightweight sweater knit, keeping that flowiness, and I'd have a really nice top for the winter. I do that when the weather starts getting cold again. For now, I'm sticking to this sleeveless version and it's so nice. Remember, the Feature Friday sales are only on Fridays. It's a good time to get it today, and you always find my affiliate link down below. I hope you enjoyed this easy make. Anyone can make it. I'll see you again very soon and have an amazing weekend. Bye.